We were taught a simple story, that modern science began just a few hundred years ago. That before us, people were lost in darkness, living in caves, fighting to survive using stones as tools. But this story is incomplete. And maybe it was never true to begin with. The world we call ancient was not backward, but advanced in a way we still don't fully understand. There were civilizations long before our history books capable of building machines, generating power, and touching the stars. This is not a fantasy. This is a truth buried in stone. A truth told by temples, pyramids, lost texts, and forgotten discoveries. And once you see the pieces come together, you'll understand. The ancient world was far more modern than we think. In 1996, deep in the remote lands of China, a group of archaeologists entered a rocky region near the edge of a salt lake. They had no idea what they were about to find. What they discovered there would shake the foundations of history. They uncovered a structure that didn't look natural. A mountain, but not just any mountain. It was shaped like a pyramid. Sharp at the top, wide at the base. Inside, they found something impossible: metal pipes buried deep in stone. The age of these pipes? Not 500 years, not 5,000 years, but 150,000 years old. And this wasn't the only strange discovery in China. Because 60 years earlier, high in the Himalayas on the roof of the world, another mystery had already begun. One that many believe connects directly to the one found in Mount Baigong. In 1937, a Chinese archaeologist named Qipu Tei had led a team into the Rocky Mountains of Tibet. What they found inside a hidden cave would haunt historians forever. Inside that dark cave, they uncovered 716 circular stone discs, each one perfectly shaped, with a hole in the center like a prehistoric CD. Their edges were carved with strange markings, tiny symbols too small to read with the naked eye. The discs were made from granite mixed with cobalt, one of the hardest substances known to science. That alone would have been strange. But then something else appeared. Small skeletons buried in the cave. Not normal human skeletons. These were short, no more than 4 feet tall, with long arms, thin limbs, and oversized skulls. The team was silent. No one could explain what they were seeing. For 20 years, the markings on the discs remained undeciphered. But in the 1960s, a professor named Sum Nui made a breakthrough. Working with Tibetan monks and tribal elders, he decoded parts of the writing. And what he found sounded like science fiction, except it was written in stone. The discs told the story of a spacecraft that crash-landed 12,000 years ago. The beings inside were not monsters, they were travelers. Small, intelligent, and peaceful. The locals feared them and hid in caves. But over time they realized these beings, called the Dropa, had no weapons and meant no harm. The Dropa had come from the sky, but they couldn't return. So they stayed. The writing said, "First we hid from them in fear, but then we saw they were not enemies. They became like us. They stayed with us." Later, anthropologists discovered that the skeletal remains inside the cave, those with the large skulls, matched no known human race. And outside, in a remote area of the Tibetan plateau, scientists found 2 tribes with strange features. They were short, their skin was yellowish, their heads were larger than normal, their hair almost non-existent. They were called the Dropka people. Even today, these tribes exist quiet, isolated, and different. Their DNA doesn't match the nearby Mongol or Tibetan populations. Some believe they are the descendants of the Dropa visitors still living in the shadows of the mountains that once hid their ancestors. And what about the Dropa stones? They were placed in a Chinese museum. But after growing attention, something strange happened. In 1994, 2 German scientists tried to view them, only to be told they were destroyed by the Chinese government. Why destroy ancient artifacts? What were they hiding? No answers came. Just silence. But the mystery was far from over, because something even stranger was waiting, buried in the sands of Western China. In the year 1996, archaeologists entered the Qinghai province near a salt lake called Lake Tosu. Locals had long believed a nearby mountain wasn't natural, that it had too many perfect lines, too sharp a point. When researchers entered the mountain, they found a cave. Inside the cave were pieces of iron, unusual stones, and pipes. Yes, iron pipes. Not ancient wooden channels, but shaped, structured, rusted metal pipes that went deep into the mountain and stretched toward the lake. The scientists were confused. They collected samples. They started tests. And the result? These pipes were not from any dynasty, not from any emperor. They were dated to be at least 150,000 years old. That's long before the Iron Age, long before written history, long before humans supposedly even knew how to make tools. So how were these pipes created? Some tried to say it was a mistake. Maybe it was natural. Maybe lava made them. But that explanation didn't survive the next discovery. Inside the pipes, researchers found materials that don't occur together naturally. Silicon dioxide from quartz and calcium oxide, quicklime. These are not random. These are used in modern electricity systems. One creates heat, the other conducts charge. The theory started to build. The salt lake nearby is a perfect conductor. The quartz inside the mountain vibrates under pressure and generates electricity, a process called piezoelectricity. The pipes directed water through the mountain, over these materials. And the result? An ancient electrolysis system, one that separated hydrogen and oxygen from water and generated power. In other words, an ancient electric power plant. This is not the only time such a pattern has appeared. In Egypt, the Great Pyramid is built on top of flowing water and is lined with quartz. In Peru, ancient stones contain drilled holes with the precision of modern machines. In India, texts thousands of years old describe flying machines, advanced medicine, and star maps. And in China, a hidden pyramid contains iron pipes and evidence of energy systems no one can explain, and the government won't allow further excavation. Now link all of this to the Dropa story. The Dropa crashed, they stayed, they had knowledge, they lived underground, they were short, advanced, and peaceful. And after they were gone, the only things left were bones, discs, and buried technology. It all connects. And yet, the world turns away. In the 1970s, a foreign engineer visited the Chinese museum that held the Dropa discs. He asked questions, but the staff refused to speak. Later, German researchers came to study the stones. The museum told them the stones were destroyed. No records, no access, no proof. But if they were fake, why destroy them? Why hide them? And why do these stories from Tibet to Qinghai, from pyramids to pipes, all tell the same thing? That ancient people were not primitive. That they had power, literal power, and that today's science might only be scratching the surface of what they already knew. The Dropa tried to send a message. They carved it into stone. But we laughed. The pyramid at Baigong tried to show its secrets, but it was buried. The bones of the forgotten tribes told their story, but they were ignored. Now we must ask, how many more secrets lie hidden under our feet? How many stories were erased, denied, or forgotten just because they don't fit inside the narrow box we call history? Maybe we weren't the first. Maybe what we call progress is just rediscovery. And maybe long ago a world more intelligent, more connected, and more advanced was already here. And then it vanished. But it left behind whispers in stone,